All right, what's up, guys? We're back at it, and like I promised, we're going to dive right into it, and we are going to lock down our public variables. And the reason we did public variables at the beginning, if you recall, was just so we could access them in our inspector, because if these are private, you can't see them. So right now, let's just go ahead and go to our game manager, and you see all these on the right side, like all the enemies we have placed in there, and then the max on screen and total enemies. If we go ahead and just start making these private, and you should do this, these should all be private. I'll show you how we'll deal with them. All right, and save that. If you come over here to your game manager, okay, there we go. Now it just shows the script and no variables are there. So that's not good because we do need to set things. And if we can't set things, well, it makes it a little difficult, doesn't it? All right, so one thing that you can do with Unity is we can use a serialized field. And what that does is it basically gives us access to this private variable in the inspector, but this object will still be private to other classes. So if you'd actually want to access it from another class, you'd have to make a public getter. But that's what you want to do. If you've taken any of Mark's courses, you know that you want private everything and use getters and setters for anything that accesses it. So if we put serialized above all these, since we do need to adjust these to make our game work right now, we're just going to, whoops. All right. And then almost done. So serialized field for all of them. We save it. And if we go back into our game manager, they'll pop back up. So there we go. We have access to them, but they're locked down from other classes accessing them. Okay. And so that's what I wanted to show you there. Do we have it on our, yep, we should also do it on our enemy. And I can't remember, let's just go to our prefabs. What are we all using? Okay, so we need the target. Well, the target's not that important. It was just to visually see it. So we need the exit point, and then the waypoints, and then navigation update are important numbers for us. So navigation update is going to be private, but we'll serialize field it. Okay. And then the waypoints also will be serialized and private. And then the exit point. Yes, we also need to be able to drag the exit object into that position. All right. And then the target can be private. We don't need to access it outside of this class because the enemy, I'm just cutting it and pasting it down by our other private fields that aren't serialized field. Okay. And space in between those two. I like to keep everything separated, like the serialized field variables, private, and then public. So that locks everything down in our enemy class. And those are our only scripts at the moment. Let's just make sure. Yep. And our singleton's already private. We just did that. All right. So we're ready to start doing some fun stuff. Let's look at our sprites. Okay. So remember that GUI folder that I said we're going to ignore right now? Well, we ignored when we originally imported assets. We're going to want to drag that into our sprite folder now. So let's go and find that in our asset folder, sprites and GUI. So grab this folder and then drag it right into your sprite folder. And that'll import, it'll turn all the PNGs into sprites for us. It's nice that Unity does that for us. All right, so our GUI folder is now there. So we're going to learn about sprite sheets. They're pretty cool. Instead of having a ton of individual sprites for things that you use in your window and everything, you can actually just have a whole sheet of them. And let's see, and we're interested in elements, okay? So if you click on elements, and this is important, the sprite mode has to be set to multiple. If it's not multiple, it won't let us do this. So then once it's multiple, you can go ahead and hit the sprite editor, hit apply, so our settings apply, the multiple settings. All right, so this is a whole sheet of sprites that we want. And the ones we're interested in are down here at the bottom, and these are our towers that we're going to be building, okay? And let's see what other ones. I think we're going to be interested in a couple other ones on this sheet. I just can't remember off the top of my head. You know, we'll worry about it when we get there. All right. So basically to pull these off of this sprite sheet, you just click and drag around one of them and see that blue box, how it appeared. And then down here, this appeared here. So we can name this. We can actually call this whatever we want. We're going to call this our rock tower. So rock tower. And the reason that we're calling it our rock tower is a rock is one of our projectiles, okay? All right, so once it's named, go ahead and just click this trim in the upper left corner. And what it does is it pulls in this box closer to it, okay? And then if you hit apply over here on the right, we now have a sprite called Rock Tower. And so now we can do the same thing to the Castle Tower. All right, and that's exactly what we're going to call it, Castle Tower. And then go ahead and hit trim here, and that pulls it in, and hit apply. And same thing to our night post. All right, but we'll call it Night Tower just to keep everything the same. You guys can call these anything you want. This is what I'm calling them, Night Tower. And basically the rock tower is going to be the weakest. And then the next one is going to be our archer tower, the castle tower. And then the night tower will be our fireball tower. So you could call it fireball tower. You can do whatever you want, guys. It's your game. All right, so before we hit apply, go ahead and hit trim so it pulls in that frame. And then hit apply. And now we have 3 individual sprites created off of this sprite sheet. And we can just close out of this box. So if you come here to the GUI, elements, and if you expand this right here, you'll see that we have 3 sprites. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so what we're going to do now is we want these 3 buttons like you've seen in the first video in our intro. The 3 buttons are going to be in the lower right corner, right? So what we need to do is in our hierarchy, click create, go to UI, and just create a button. And it's thinking. All right, so it created a bunch of things for us. When you create your first UI, it creates a canvas. And then it also put our button here, okay? And then it also creates an event system. And basically the event system and the canvas just keep track of everything on the UI, okay? But we're gonna have to zoom out. And this is going to look crazy. Do you see this white box? Like it's not even close to our scene that we built, and that's okay. You don't have to worry about it. The way these canvases are made is you basically make the UI in a giant fashion and it will self-adjust to whatever size screen it is put on and it'll look good. So you don't really have to worry about it like being weird. If we take this button that we created and select it, and if we drag it on, you'll see it drag on in the lower, in our game scene. It dragged onto the screen, see? And it's not even close to our scene in our scene editor. So like, but that's what we want. This is okay. It's cool. All right. So What we're going to do first, we need a couple things. We need 3 buttons, and then we also, we want them all aligned nicely. So let's right click our canvas and let's add one more item, and go ahead and just add an image. And then over by the image, we're just gonna delete the component. We don't actually need that. Okay, and we actually aren't going to use an image for this. I just wanted the small frame. So go ahead in the component area here, hit the little gear and hit remove component, and now we'll just have a clear frame. And it's all good, guys. And let's adjust it. So go ahead and click on this box here and make it a little bigger. Okay, that's fine for now. And then take our button and drag it into the image. Okay. All right, and let's call our image tower panel. Okay. And one thing we are going to want our tower panel to have is a grid layout group. So click on add component, and if you just start typing grid, we want grid layout group. That's perfect. And see how our button kind of snapped into place now? That's really cool. And let's see, we need, I'm gonna just make this a little bigger. We need 3 buttons, okay? So go ahead and you can hit Control D or Command D, or right click and hit duplicate, and go ahead and put 3 buttons there. And what's nice about the little grid system that the grid layout that we added to this panel, it automatically takes care of the spacing here. So see, it's just locked to the upper left corner, which is fine. We don't, and then, yeah, if you do that, it just automatically takes care of all the spacing for us. It's nice. So if we go ahead, let's just drag this down to the lower corner. All right, so those are our 3 buttons. And over here, you can change spacing if you need to. All right, so for start corner, let's do upper right. Start axis, we want it horizontal. We don't want these vertical. Child alignment, we can do lower left. There we go, and it just shifts it down in the box. So if the box is bigger, it keeps it towards the bottom, which we want our buttons on the bottom. All right, now we don't want the constraints flexible. We want a fixed column count. We only want 3 buttons, okay? So change that 2 to a 3, and now it will always keep 3 to a column, which is perfect. We're not changing anything. All right, and then we can change a lot. You can hit the expand arrow next to padding, and let's just see, now that we have 3 fixed, it doesn't bounce to another line, which is kind of cool. Let's see, on the right side, we can give it some padding. And then on the bottom, let's give it some padding. And now it's kind of centered better in that box. All right. And then let's click on this in the rect transform. Go ahead and click on that, and let's have it pinned to the lower right corner. And that just changes the anchor over here. I think that's all we want to do here. And now we have our buttons. So this one is going to be, first of all, let's expand all these, and let's delete the text. We don't want text on our buttons. So go ahead and delete text on all of them. That's done. And this button is going to be called our night button. And we'll just do BTN for short. All right, and this is going to be our castle button. And this is going to be our rock button. All right, and now we can go ahead and find our sprites. And so see the source image? Yeah, okay, so our source image, we want to drag our rock tower to it. And now you'll see that button pop up. Select the castle button and drag the castle to the sprite. All right. And then the knight, drag the knight to the sprite. And this is just under image in the inspector when you have the buttons selected. And then our GUI under our sprites is over here. And remember, we separated them from the sprite sheet. Okay, so now we have 3 buttons. I think we need to space these buttons out a little bit, and that should be a setting. And let's see, where is that setting? Spacing. There we go, spacing. Let's try 10. I think that looks pretty good. Obviously, we got to drag our box a little bigger. All right. There we go. Pretty cool. Okay, so we have our buttons. We should probably make prefabs out of these guys. We'll do that once we get a script attached. So we'll hold off for a second. Okay, so it's real easy. Let's just write our scripts that are going to be attached to these buttons. All right, so go into our script. Let's go ahead and create a new folder, and let's call this tower. We're gonna put everything that has to do with the tower inside, and then right-click that folder and hit Create New C# script. And we're gonna call this script tower button, all right? And then go ahead and double-click to open it. And this is easy. Go ahead and delete system collections. We don't need it, and we don't need starter update. Basically, all we need in this button right now is a game object. Basically, we'll make it serialized. Serialized field, private, and then game object. So we created, well, we need to connect. So when we push this button, we need to know what game object to place on the board, right? We're selecting a game object. So this is going to be our tower object. All right. And since it's private, we need to make a getter and a setter if we change it, but we're only getting this. We're going to set it in our inspector, and we don't ever want to change these, you know, other than the one time we set it up. Like the rock tower is always going to be the rock tower. All right. So go ahead and make a public game object and call this tower object with a capital T. The private one is lowercase. They can't be the same, remember. And just opening and closing curly brackets, and then do a get, opening and closing curly brackets, and say return tower object with a lowercase t. So we're returning the private object. And that's all we want our tower button to do. Basically, when it's pushed, it is going to get whatever button we have set here, or whatever tower object, and it's going to return it to us. So we'll be able to get it, all right? So that's that. And let's see, I don't think we've created any. All right, cool. So if we highlight all of our buttons, and let's go ahead and add component, and close out anything if you have a search field. Go to scripts, not new scripts, just scripts, and click on tower button. All right, so now you'll see that all of these have a script attached to them, and they're looking for a tower object, but we don't have a tower object, do we? So we need to create our tower prefabs, okay? All right, so in our prefabs, let's go ahead and create a new folder. So right-click prefabs, new folder, and call this towers. And while we're at it, let's make another one and call it enemies. And let's drag our 3 prefab enemies into the enemy folder just to clean things up. And then if we go into our tower folder, it's empty. So we need to make prefabs or game objects of our tower. So what I'm going to do is just center this and zoom back in on our game scene, on our scene editor, excuse me. All right, we need to find our towers. So if you go into sprites, click on the tower folder. All right, we want the archer tower front. the castle tower front, and the knight post front, okay? And our archer tower is not going to be an archer tower. It's going to be our rock flinging tower. Now we just drag it to the scene, and that looks awfully small, doesn't it? Let's see what the castle looks like. It's a little measly. I think we need to adjust the pixels a little bit. And if you remember how to do that, we can select, let's see, select archer tower front, castle tower front, hit command or I believe control in the Windows world. Whoop. And then select knight front. I don't know what I did there. All right, so with all these selected, the pixels per unit is 200. Let's go ahead and make it 150. And hit apply. And now they're a little bigger. I think that's probably good. That makes me happy. And if you guys don't like it, you don't have to change it. That's fine. Now let's go ahead. First, let's rename the archer tower to the rock tower. Okay, now it kind of matches all of our things. And then the knight post, let's make the knight tower. And let's get rid of front. We don't need front. We're only going to use the front ones. And feel free if you want to add, other towers into your game, you can do it. You have the tools. You now know how to do it. All right, so with these three here, let's go ahead and drag them to our prefab tower folder. And it will turn blue once it's a prefab, so that's cool. And now just the knight. All right, now let's go ahead and select all these in the hierarchy and command delete or delete in the Windows world. We don't need them in our hierarchy. And now that we have our prefabs here, let's go ahead into our canvas, into our tower panel, click on your buttons. So first I have the knight button selected, and we need to pick a object for the script. If you scroll all the way down, your script is down there and it says game object none. So go ahead and drag knight tower into this one. All right, then click on castle button and drag the castle tower object. And then rock button is rock tower object. Whoops, I missed. All right, command save. All right, and in the prefabs, let's go ahead and create a new folder, right-click prefabs folder, and call it buttons. And then let's go ahead and drag our buttons into our button prefab folder, and they'll turn blue once they're created. We're not going to delete these. I'm just making a prefab as an extra safety. Like if we accidentally delete it out of our hierarchy, they'd still be set up in our prefab folder, okay? But we're gonna leave them there. And yeah, so those are all attached to their scripts. That's pretty cool. And now all we have to do is, be able to place our towers on our build sites. All right, so we need to create another singleton. So that's exciting, right? Let's go ahead and create a new, let's create our tower manager. So we're gonna create an empty game object and go ahead and click on that and name it tower manager. All right, and then under scripts, we'll just leave it with the game manager here. Hit create new C# script and call this tower manager. All right, that's created. If we go ahead and click on Tower Manager right away, you can just drag this script right onto it and it'll connect it. And then let's open this. And we want this to also be a singleton like our game manager. So go ahead and just find our singleton class that we created and type in Tower Manager here. And how easy is that? It's already a singleton. Pretty cool. All right, so some things we need to do here. We want to know which button was pressed, right? And then we want to have that object be instantiated and wherever we click on the board, okay? We'll worry about the build sites on the next video. We'll just get towers being built because that's cool, right? So let's see. Let's make our tower button. So we need a public, we need to know when this is being pressed. No, we don't. make it private, tower button, and then we'll call this tower button pressed. All right, so that's that. So we are basically making it type of our button. All right, so it's going to be connected to getting our game object, okay? And then we need to create a method that is going to select our tower from that button. So if you just do a public void selected tower, all right, and this is going to take in type tower button, and we'll call this tower selected, okay? And all we have to do in here is set our variable here to be equal to what got passed in from the button, and the button's passing in the game object connected to it, okay? So we just need to, let's see, our tower button pressed needs to equal tower selected. All right, so to see if this is working, why don't we do a debug.log and just print pressed, closing brackets, plus tower button pressed dot, we'll call the game object here. All right, and let's save that and run our game. And let's go ahead and pull up our console and push. Of course, it doesn't work. We forgot to, so we have to make our tower manager. First of all, let's make it a prefab. So slide it into our prefab folder. All right, and we have to add it to our main camera. Nothing's loading this right now. All right, so let's go ahead and now press run. Guys, I'm too excited to get this working. I'm a dork. All right, I forgot to set up our buttons all the way. Select your button in the tower on click. We have to add what we want it to do. So hit plus. So on click, we want to select an object here. All right. And that object is going to be our tower manager, not from the prefabs from the main camera, okay? All right, and that gives us access to tower manager, which is if you come down here, selected tower. And now when this is pressed, it will click the tower button. And now we have to tell it what object we want there. And obviously we have night button selected, so just drag itself into there. It's not gonna like me. Shoot. Tower manager. Oh, I have to be on the right thing. All right, so we're back here. We need to add, just click this little circle here. That'll be easier. And let's see, we're on the night button. So click on the night. All right, so that one's done. So now do our castle, add, same thing, drag our tower manager there, and then select tower manager, and then select tower function, and then drag the castle button onto itself. There we go. That time it liked it. And let's go ahead and also hit apply on these so they take over the prefab. All right, now let's do the rock button. Add the on click. Okay, so the object is going to be the tower manager, and then the function used is in tower manager, selected tower, and then drag the rock button, and then hit apply so the prefab gets set. All right, now we're ready to press run and see our buttons work. So there we go. I pressed the rock button, cool. Pressed castle button, pressed, cool. And night button pressed. That's pretty sweet. All right, so we got our buttons, laid out and working now. They are printing to the screen. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and get our mouse. Basically, we're going to use a 2D raycast, to know exactly where our mouse is, and where we click will build the tower. It's really cool, and I will see you guys shortly.